So we've got about 30 minutes to dive into some questions. I think that maybe kind of starting, I think, on the note of the very sort of different sort of landscapes from a political and legal perspective around the world. I'm curious if you all could share, sort of thinking about Taiwan, how does sort of the work that you're doing, how is that influenced by shifts in the political and legal environment there? And maybe if you could share an example of how you might have had to adapt your strategy based on the environment. Joyce, you can start off. Yeah.
For the, I think the political environment before I joined the movement, I think I think that's always some effort or interaction from the civil society and the political sector. What I wanted to mention is first, you can see that like in 2007 and 2008, there's a way that we can put a subject terminology into those gender equality related labor regulation. So I think that's, it's not, that's also we are interacting or facing the challenge or facing the different waves of political situation, but that's also, we're also part of that. So I think the civil society always were part of the, we're also the factor to impact on the political situation. So for example, when we do the marriage equality campaign, we invite corporates to also be part of the advocacy. They can also have their voice heard. The policy changing or the legal reform is also important for not only LGBTI community, but for in general, every sector of the society, including corporates. And for now, I think we also, like in the beginning, you mentioned about the current situation in the US. We also, since our first index, you can see that's 60% of them are transnational corporates. So we also worry about whether the headquarters from the US or from the other place, they might be in fact by those canceling the net policy. So how we adopt that, or maybe in the future we can have more collaboration with Taiwan's government on how to put that even more into our labor or finance management policy. For example, in Taiwan, currently over some capital amount, the corporates, those on the stock market, they need to file ESG report annually for their finance management. So whether the D&I can be also being seen part of that and be valued more important than before, I think that's the thing where maybe interact in the future, yeah, to cope with different waves of political environment change.
I know in the US, you have red and blue forces in politics world, and the confrontation is getting fierce and fierce. But in Taiwan, we also have two main parties, which represents blue and green. But compared to the US, I think the confrontation is not that huge. However, with regard to the LGBTQ issue, I think in Taiwan, the younger generation and the older generation probably would possess different positions. And among younger generations, young people is getting more and more accept this LGBTQ rights issue, and they would have more common view on this issues. However, among all older generations, they are more conservative. So I think for politicians in Taiwan, if they want to communicate with young people, they really have to know what they are thinking and their standing on these issues. So I think the atmosphere is transforming right now, but we still need more time and adjustment between different generations. So we're still in that process.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit more on sort of the state of play here in the U.S. You know, certainly there is a growing divide in the U.S. Among sort of sides of the political aisle. I think that for the last 20 to 30 years, I think that we've certainly been operating in the mode that more and more businesses, private sector, continue to see the value and the importance of workplace inclusion. And you know, with more extremist voices out there, with stronger online platforms that can mobilize people to speak out against things like DEI, which they've been very, very effective in messaging. It really has caused and created pause amongst business leaders. And then when you add on to that an administration that now is seeking legal means to try to undermine diversity, equity, and inclusion, it creates an even more precarious position for businesses to engage in this work. You know, part of the executive orders issued by the Trump administration, which has no legal grounding and is currently making its way through the courts right now, is that in order to do business with the federal government, they can no longer engage in illegal DEI. And so if you think about the number of businesses whose work and the livelihoods that depend upon the federal government, that creates a very difficult decision for businesses. And so that's why we are seeing changes around commitments to workplace inclusion. But I think, you know, really important for us all to remember here that the attacks on DEI are coming from a place where they think that DEI has created a special opportunity for certain communities, when in fact all of our work together, you know, really demonstrates that we are trying to level the playing field. We are trying to create the same opportunities for everybody to succeed in the workplace and for everybody to feel safe and welcome in the workplace. And that is the message that we need to kind of collectively be continuing to share, that we aren't asking for anything special here. We're asking for the ability for all of us, for everybody to be able to succeed. I think as we, you know, as the Human Rights Campaign continues to come under pointed attack, we are continuing to be attacked by extremist organizations and individuals that say that we are infiltrating businesses and strong-arming them into doing this work when they are doing this work because they do understand the business case for it. But nonetheless, I think it is shifting how we do our work. We are emphasizing direct engagement with senior leadership right now. You know, we were able to, for the last 20 years, really be able to engage businesses with the index, you know, more on a transactional basis, providing them with the blueprint and the framework for what it means to have an inclusive environment. And they would take that and they would implement that and run with it. Right now, the focus is on building relationships. And so that is a core sort of element of our work as we navigate sort of the shifting sort of political environment. I would also say that collaboration, not to kind of be too on the nose with sort of the point of our conversation here today, but the importance for us to work across communities, whether that be the LGBTQ+ community, women's organizations, African American civil rights organizations, people with disabilities, our collective work, this impacts every single community. And so the importance for us to be able to kind of work together and to kind of present a united front in this, and that recognizing that everybody is a DEI hire when you get down to it in some regard. And then I would say the last point is, you know, Joyce, you were talking about, you know, benchmarking and tying DEI related metrics to ESG. I think that we are in a place right now where you know, being sort of reporting and visibility and transparency within corporations, we're in a little bit of a tough place right now where there actually probably is reduced transparency when it comes to things like ESG and DEI. And so, you know, as we see and sort of figure out where those changes might be going, what other methods and frameworks can we use to help kind of continue to hold, you know, and create businesses, give businesses sort of the ways and understanding of what they should be doing to create inclusive environments? Like, are there opportunities to have a framework for businesses to self-report so that they don't necessarily need to engage in an index, which might make them a target for extremists or government folks that are trying to undermine equality? So those are a few of the things that we're kind of navigating at HRC and in the US. It's a lot, yeah. So, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, stay together.
Yeah, yeah.
Together stronger.
Yes, definitely. Wanted to talk a little bit about, so I've certainly talked about some of the barriers to my work, but maybe if you all could kind of share a little bit about some of the biggest barriers to effective partnerships between civil society, government, and the private sector, and maybe like if there was a key moment that your strategy helped to overcome those barriers.
I think the barriers we face, normally it's, I think sometimes the political situation also the barrier. For example, currently in Taiwan, I think the Congress, they do have lots of the political dispute going on, and I think that the barrier for us, for example, I mentioned about TC do a lot of the political advocacy, so it would be tougher for us to mention a gender issue when there's some other political agenda is going on, which is not related to our policy. I think that's one of the obstacles we can face. And in terms of the workplace in that index, we mentioned about there's in Taiwan actually 80% of our industry landscape are small or medium corporates. So when we only have 90, okay. So majority is not international or transnational corporates. And that's the things we face when we conduct the index. So from the political sector or from the when we trying to do some advocacy or collaboration with the corporates, we do face some obstacle, and so I think for the solution, for example, for the index, we don't have enough local corporates to join. We use some. This year, we're trying to navigate with some strategy. So with the hotline, we conduct a focus group interview with those small or maybe an industry owner or people working there to get their feedback, how to make the index more friendly for their work, for them or their organization or corporates, easier to participate. So I think through the communication, we all trying to have some solution to deal with that. Yeah.
So as a government officer, I think we, especially at the local government level, we have a lot of different kinds of pressure from our city council. So sometimes we have to be neutral and we cannot have bias, but the line in that is sometimes not that absolute. So it's hard for us to take the appropriate position to communicate or engage with civil society. And also, I think it's to build up the trust between government and civil society takes time. So sometimes the trust building process would take some time, and you have to do a lot of work to earn their trust. So I think that's not, I would not say that's barriers, but I would say that's challenges that we have to conquer.
One other thing that I think is important to mention too is, the voices of employees and customers speak volumes to business leaders too. And so we are just starting to see in the US some of those voices starting to lift right now. I think that attacks on DEI didn't really become center stage until they showed up in the White House press briefing room, which was mystifying to me to ever think that the words diversity, equity, inclusion would show up in a White House press briefing. But I think we are starting to see some of those voices right now that I think are going to be very, very effective and important in helping to make sure that business leaders understand the importance of inclusion and defending those commitments. We had a question online regarding how did Taiwan society deal with religious and cultural background, such as Confucianism, to legalize same-sex marriage. I'm wondering if maybe Miriam or Joyce, you guys could provide some insight
sure.
into that.
Okay. I think in Taiwan, we're just trying to make we're trying to apply that the common story or common family value we all share together when we do the advocacy. So, for example, I think in Taiwan during our campaign we do have serious videos to show that LGBTI people can also get the support from their family. So we do have a very old grandma who is age of 93 and being interviewed and to tell the story that I support my granddaughter to have to marry with her girlfriend, and they are perfect, they can be happy together, and the core of marriage is happiness and harmony. So, which is shared value with everyone. And I also want to say that in East Asia, that's also in common. We can see South Korea also adopted the similar strategy. So the Marriage for All Korea, they do have series of videos to interview the couples and with their families. I think that's the things we can launch to show that. I think during our campaign we do face some criticism that marriage equality, LGBTI right, or even now maybe D&I is a Western value. It's it's not in our culture, but we're trying to make the story or the advocacy for everyone is involved.
I think the power of storytelling and to be able to make sure that we're connecting the stories of people so that everybody really has and understands sort of the human elements of it. I know that that's one of the things that we've really been focused on at HRC, especially as we are navigating some really powerful voices against the trans community, and just knowing that they make up just over 1% of the population, it is harder for us to kind of say, we know somebody who's trans, and so how can we make those introductions through powerful storytelling devices like video become more and more important? I think we'll open it up to the audience here. I don't know if there are any questions that folks might have, would like to pose to any of us here.